Education is what's important. Training, preparation for the expected. Education, preparation for the unexpected.
To all who shall see these presents, greetings. On behalf of Marine Corps University, the Marine Corps University Foundation, and the Krulak Center for Innovation and Future Warfare, welcome back to the Brutcast. Our series designed to connect the worlds of the warfighter and PME with the best in innovative and creative thought. I'm your host, Major Nate Janikin, Operations Officer at the Krulak Center. Before we begin, please remember that all opinions expressed here are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Krulak Center, Marine Corps University, United States Marine Corps, or any other agency of the U.S. government. We'll also be recording this webcast for the benefit of those in our community of interest who could not join us today, so we ask that you keep your own webcams off to help us stream smoothly. At the conclusion of our discussion, we'll have a question and answer session, so if you have a question, just type it in the group chat and I'll go through them in the order received. So I'm going to open this episode by reading the closing paragraph of an article that was published in the Marine Corps Gazette in February of 2024 entitled Robotically Ethical Marines. The outsized impacts of a junior Marine, the time relevance pressures of an active combat scenario, and the continued emphasis on decentralized leadership and increased maneuver warfare speed can create a potent cocktail of supposedly good, in this case meaning beneficial, fruitful, profitable, legal, expected decisions that are unethical. Decision cycles have only gotten faster. Consequently, legal awareness, cultural awareness, and ethical awareness must be executed in the PME of Marines to make them prepare for future warfare and capitalize on the technological advances we strive for. So I bring that up specifically because the co-author of one of those articles is our guest today. So Dr. Joanna Siekiera is an assistant professor of international humanitarian law of armed conflict at the War Studies University in Warsaw, Poland, and a fellow here at the Krulak Center at Marine Corps University in Quantico. She supports various military institutions, primarily NATO, as a legal advisor, consultant, course facilitator, and book editor. She did her postdoctoral research at the University of Bergen in Norway and her PhD studies at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. Dr. Siekiera is an author of many publications in several languages, legal opinions, and international monographs on international law, international relations, and security. Her areas of expertise are the law of armed conflict, lawfare, legal culture in armed conflict, NATO legal framework, and the Indo-Pacific region, Pacific law, and maritime security. Ma'am, welcome back, three-time co-host of the Brutcast now. And with that, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Kiwi. I am honored to be here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am a proud fellow at the Marine Corps University. I support endeavors, and I'm very proud that we could talk at your podcast also about the legal aspects. Most likely, legal warfare, lawfare, is the least touched topic in professional military education. I also am familiar with many legal cultures across NATO, but also our partners and allies. And this aspect of international humanitarian law is not being taught to help military personnel to actually use it, to see it as a weapon. And today's topic, AI, from the legal perspective, from the ethical perspective, is very crucial because if we will fail here, then it's very hard to get back. Our adversaries, Russian Federation, Chinese Republic, the People's Republic of China, Islamist Republic of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, a lot of terrorist groups, they are using already now artificial intelligence against us. While on the other hand, we are not prepared yet. And this is very important to be aware what can be done from the legal perspective. And the article I co-authored with my colleague, Jeremy Kowski, retired Marine now, we focused on legal and ethical aspects of modern warfighting, but primarily for Marine Corps, because Marine Corps, I was going through the document which was issued recently, Force Design 2030. All Marines probably know this by now by heart, but I was always, hungry for legal part, for ethical part, because most likely the most programs in military world, they are all focused on kinetic, on hardware, weaponry supplies, logistics, and which is all good. But again, this legal component is always missing, while we are witnessing what primarily China and Russia are doing on international arena using international law. So without heavy funds on weaponry or starting a war, they can leverage international law institutions against us and our values. Because when I always say, and we discussed that previously in the two podcasts, it's not only about military struggle, economic rivalry, but the fight between our cultures, our democratic values, transparency of public administration, protection of human rights, human dignity, versus totalitarian regimes of controlling identity, of controlling every individual. So it is our legal and moral duty to stop that. So when we, ladies and gentlemen, look at my analysis from the legal perspective, so robotically ethical Marines. So the Marines trained would be prepared for the war also from this AI perspective, which is not yet codified by international norms. There is no AI treaty. Countries so far did not decide to sign a treaty about this phenomenon. It is growing, but still countries are unwilling to sit down and write down a treaty based on a consensus. The only exception is where I am now, so European Union. So long awaited European Union AI Act became law this year. This July 16th, we had officially this regulation by European Union, Artificial Intelligence Act, that was published in official journal. So that made the first comprehensive legal framework for regulation of AI systems across the globe. But when we talk about Marines, this is very interesting that already in force design 2030, there was this very important addition, this update, and indeed that was codification of intelligent robotics and autonomous systems, IRAS. This was indeed fundamental for the Marine Corps to prepare for modern warfare. As you know better than me, the environment of modern warfare has been changing so far already for years, decades. And now it's all about the rules of the use and safe operation using AI. So new rules, new methods of warfare, and finally we have some codification, how to use AI in practice. Because just as I know that soldiers, Marines, sailors, aviators are sending to the area of operation with little books, like in Poland, green books, rules of engagement with legal doctrine, not everything there is clear. For people without legal education, that might be a struggle how to interpret those rules, and especially when you are face to face with the enemy. So very small steps, yet in a very good direction from the Marine Corps command to put already AI, so this approach via codification of, once again, intelligent robotics and an autonomous system, IRAS. This is very important to say that due to this quicker automation, the principle of ethics and artificial intelligence will make dependent on whether winning or losing, not only the battle, the mission, but also the general appearance, the general idea of the mission, not only of Marine Corps and the United States, but NATO, whole Western civilization. So whatever is done by a Marine steering a robot will give an echo across all the media, TikTok, and we all know about propaganda there, how we use it, for which purposes. Therefore, it's very important to be aware how to use AI, to which extent, but also to prevent misusage of AI. So the principles of martial robotics section within force design, there are threefold, and I will read them. First, human element of armed conflict remains central. So we still talk about humans, that we steer the robots, not robots us, as probably according to statistics, when we read the data, that people are the most afraid that those would be robots who will tell them what to do or not to do. So human element is the core. Second, IRAS enhance human processes without replacing the warfighter. In many science fiction novels or whatever, we have fights of robots. But no, here is written exactly that warfighter is like a pilot for a robot, not that robot itself is steering, guiding, leading in which way to go. Finally, third one, Marines must fight at machine speed or face defeat at machine speed. As we all know, it's all getting faster and faster and quicker, so our adversaries. So we must be prepared, and all the mechanisms, proceedings, also legal ones, must be done in alignment with that fastened pace. Otherwise, we are missing the chance, or even can risk getting hit and losing our people on a battlefield. What is also interesting, we have this part, probably the largest part of force design dictum, that we talk about increased interoperability at all domain awareness. So MDO, it's not only the 5 armed forces we all know about, but it's indeed in cyber. We have artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is being used by all other domains. So it's not only cyber forces. Then recognizing and treating data as a strategic resource. So it's not only data itself, what is the highest asset we can get, but it's a matter of sharing and taking care of that data we can have ourselves or from our partners and allies. And when it comes to making ethical decisions through IRAS, this is through IRAS, not for IRAS. So this is very important that I always repeat to my military and civilian students, that law is made by the society, not the other way around. So the way we will write down the norms about AI are for our benefit, for us humans, so either civilian, military, or during our discussion for Marines. So it is in our benefit to write down and understand and also interpret those rules and regulations for our benefit, not to write them down in a sense that we would have to struggle to align with it, because it makes no sense. And again, on the battlefield, you don't have that much time for considering. A lot of Marines, when I was preparing for writing this chapter, this article, they were mentioning, oh, will you write something about Isaac Asimov? I myself was not aware who that person was. So that was interesting to learn quite a few about him. And he actually coined this term robotics, well, what are robots? What can they be capable of? But Asimov, he was underlining, I would say, total sovereignty of robots. so that would be their sole decisions, and they will not be monitored by a human at all the time. So this is very important to see that he was rather thinking that robots would be as sovereign as possible, and then humans will be left aside of this control panel, which again, I would not say is ethical. Therefore, we have to analyze it from different perspective. But what he said, a robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So me as a lawyer, when I say may not, I would say it's recommendation. It's not a strict provision that a robot will never harm a human. By using this verb may not injure, we hope that this robot, being sovereign enough, will not harm a human being, a soldier, marine, but we are not sure, because who will execute that principle? So this is very tricky, very tricky. And nowadays, when we have drones fights, not only in Ukraine, but also drones used by Houthis from Yemen, also towards you, Marines, the Mediterranean Sea, we can see that who is responsible for those drones attacks? Of course, this terrorist group, but who will execute those international crimes against them? Done by AI, so drones. That's another conversation. On one hand, someone would say, well, this is easy. We've seen the owner of that drone. And I would say, yes, as a person, but as a lawyer, prove me that. I need to have evidence to put it to the court. So again, that's a long path, especially as we don't have legal basis to argue in a court about AI. But we come back to exactly law of armed conflict, another principle, and you all are aware of that, is principle of distinction. So every person during hostilities must be aware who is a party of the conflict, who is a civilian, who is a medical assistant, and so on and so on. And with using AI, it's really hard also how to teach AI to be aware who is, for example, disguised. It's hard for a human eye. And how to train a robot. Can it be possible? Yes, but unfortunately, it takes time and victims or sacrifice, in a sense, to teach AI mechanisms on already existing murders or war crimes. But then again, will we be 100% sure to be safe and feel that AI will differentiate that we are the party, not the enemy? Also, that those are our allies and partners, not allies of our enemy. So that's a long way. And when it comes to law, always law comes after. It's very reactionist and not the other way around. So law will be always codified when something will happen. And unfortunately, very often is after losing lives of military personnel. We have another interesting research, this time made by the British Institute, called Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. And they came up with 5 ethical principles for designers, builders, and users of robots. And here I think this is interesting to recall those principles, 5 of them, short ones. 1, robots should not be designed solely or primarily to kill or harm humans. Again, this is not a legal basis. This is just a principle made by a think tank in the UK. 2, humans, not robots, are responsible agents. Robots are tools designed to achieve human goals. Again, humans, not robots, are responsible agents. So me being a pilot of a robot, I take full responsibility. Either this is civilian responsibility, disciplinary, or even criminal responsibility or liability. 3, robots should be designed in ways that assure their safety and security. So we design robots in a sense not to worry about them. That seems very logical, but not always is the case. That robot being also used as a weapon must be used as a safe weapon for a person using it. 4, robots are artifacts. They should not be designed to exploit vulnerable users by evoking an emotional response or dependency. It should always be possible to tell a robot from a human. And we have two, I would say, open clause here. So emotional response and dependency. We humans are emotional creatures, even though we live in times of rational mind, but still we get tackled by emotions. This is how we've been designed biologically. So when robots would be able to feel that power over us, for example, that we are ready to do everything for the loved ones, so they might possibly use that against us. So this principle tries to prevent that. And finally, 5, it should always be possible to find out who is legally responsible for a robot. And this is what I mentioned before, that there must be this clear path, causal, between who did what and what was the action or omission made by a robot. This is very important when it comes to liability, like, again, war in Ukraine. There was this international criminal court warrant arrest against Vladimir Putin, which, again, we discussed that already, that had no legal basis. But is it only president of Russia? How about military representatives? How about all those chains of command at every level? So again, who is responsible for what? And then where can we look for this international or national justice at the level of civil liability, disciplinary measures, or even criminal accountability, as I said before. So we must create a legal linkage between the two entities, the not necessarily owner, but a pilot and a robot who made, again, action or omission, because we usually forget about the second, the latter, that if a robot has to do one thing to protect our health or life and it does not do anything, that is also considered a crime. We move forward, ladies and gentlemen. I can see there are some questions there in the chat, so I'm more than happy to discuss them later. What is important, we must not forget that a soldier, but in our case a Marine, must be fully aware that he or she is covered by the law when using AI. He or she should not be afraid of using AI because of those possible legal repercussions or criminal accountability, because that's already heavy burden of that Marine going to the war zone. But with this lack of or inconsistency of the law, its gaps, as I said, massively in regards to AI, and finally, variety of local, regional, global regulation, again, constant struggle during military courses. So next week I'm going to Norway and then to Finland, and there is always the question, so which law should we follow? Our national, host nation, rules of engagement, United Nations, NATO? It's all mixed and matched, and I always reply, well, sorry, all of them at once. It's already very much, and sometimes it's about the interpretation, not the hard law itself, because we don't have hard law in artificial intelligence. But from the Marine Corps perspective, we have our fantastic Force Design 2030, and there is, as I was talking already, this part about IRAS. And this is very, very important to be aware of that. I will not talk about commercial perspective. You can have a look at the article in a Marine Corps Gazette. But again, talking from legal culture perspective, as every Marine officer also, you follow your ethics created by the Marine Corps. You are very famous about that, which I also personally and professionally admire. So Marines and Marine Officers Guide says, Marines do not steal, Marines do not lie, Marines do not coerce, Marines do not kill innocents. This is very important also when we talk about AI, because here, from the legal perspective, I could have put Marines through robotics do not steal, Marines through robotics do not lie, Marines through IRAS, other AI systems, do not coerce, Marines through those artificial programs do not kill innocents. So in a sense that you have your old agenda, your beautiful testimony, your mission you follow, but now it is adjust to the modern times, modern era and modern weapons. Because again, as our adversaries are using artificial intelligence against us, they are hacking, they are stealing. What is the most important for us? We must protect our values using also similar tools, using law, using economics, but also AI. That's another tool, and we must start using it to protect ourselves. Why I always underline legal culture. And what is legal culture? We've been talking about that, so just briefly. Legal culture is a set of values which is codified or not by a particular society. Each nation, each tribe, each clan might have different values depending on their religion, philosophy, culture, history, assets, natural resources. And according to that, they will codify what is important to them, but also sometimes omit codification of norms if they would think this is unnecessary. Example here would be not only family law, for example, what is a definition of a family, but when it comes to artificial intelligence, should we codify AI in our legal systems or not? And here I see two groups. In the countries like your country, United Nations, United States, representing the largest economy in the United Nations, but also Japan, Singapore, Republic of Korea, the strive for codification of AI is enormous, contrary to less technologically advanced countries, like, for example, my country, Poland. Yes, there is some parliamentary group, but nobody is talking officially about, for example, signing a parliamentary bill about artificial intelligence. So you can see that, yes, we are both members of NATO, but from the legal perspective, looking at artificial intelligence, is different because, again, the needs, the possibilities, resources, assets are different. Your institute, Lejeune Leadership Institute, was also doing this ethical research of the Marine Corps, and I think this is worthwhile mentioning that. And from their research, the research they made among Marines, what I was reading, it's very interesting. I wouldn't say surprising, but I will say that the choices, ethical choices made by Marines who have been trained, taught, and expected to act rationally and legally might not always be ethical, depending on circumstances, depending on their mental health, physical fitness, problems with family, whatever. Even though we are training our Marines in a particular way, also towards AI, we cannot be 100% sure that that person, that Marine, will act as he or she was taught. It doesn't mean that those are bad people. No, it means that, again, when it comes to ethical choices, it is all very fluent in a sense that we can hope for something, expect and bet on it, but again, 100% is never secured. So this is very interesting to bear in mind that, and as you, Kiwi, quoted at the beginning of today's podcast, part of my article, my co-authored article, what is interesting, and I will always say that people from different nations will understand the same meaning, the same terminology, slightly different, even among partners, allies, neighboring countries like Poland and Germany. We have crazy history together, but we are in all organizations now. Still, we will look at the same things differently. But how about our Western civilization versus Eastern civilization? That comes also to AI, but I always ask for the roots. For Westerners, we value individualism. We protect human rights. So rights of a human, of a person, of an individual, one whole state apparatus must protect me. I know what my rights are. But when we look at the east of the world, China, Japan, Southeast Asia, it's all about the community. My rights are less relevant than the community. I know my, I would say, place in a row. I should not ask, I would not dare to ask for more, because everything must be in alignment with the needs of the party, of a clan, of a family, of a nation. Therefore, human rights are understood differently. Yes, among our democratic partners like Japan and Republic of Korea, but they are dehumanized in authoritarian regimes like China and Russia. So when we add Eastern civilization mindset and communism, so totalitarian regime, the usage of AI will be also different. They would not hesitate to use it against own individuals or especially political opponents, not mentioning us, the West, because according to their ethics, it is good, it is expected, it is prized. So, and I'm sure all of you listening to me, especially active Marines, you can fully concur that especially, China has been doing malicious tactics, actions, omissions, and again, justifying that because of their ethics. I remember my good friend, Navy, US Navy, he told me that he was many years ago training with Chinese Navy. And during their free time, they were running marathon, but in full gear across some hills. So Americans, they followed the map, the path they were given. They were not cheating. That took them so much time, many hours. But when they got to the finish line, they saw Chinese there resting. And they're like, how is that possible? Like, we haven't seen you guys along all the path. How did you do that? And they're like, normally, we just made a shortcut. I was like, Americans, they were like, no, you broke the law. This is against regulation. We agreed to follow the path over the hills in full gear. But Chinese reply, but we won. So it shows our ethics versus authoritarian Eastern ethics, that as long as we are benefiting from our actions or omissions, we are entitled or even expected to do so. So their ethics is slightly different than ours. And that was just an example of, funny trial marathon on Saturday. But how about AI? How about creating propaganda? How about making fake news, which are spread so easily that even when we are trying to say, no, that was misinformation, disinformation, who reads that? No one, because the first shot, the first picture was already sent and everyone is already quoting that as the truth. So this is very important. And lastly, because I'm already talking for half an hour, can law do something? Can international law make a change? I always say that not pure law, but it's interpretation and goodwill. When we don't have political will or education among our societies, the law can be dead. The law, the norms, regulation can be said, then they can be agreed upon, they can be signed and ratified as the binding law. But if people will not use it, then we are losing. And I'm not even saying during the battle, in the combat operation, but I mean also during the peacetime or gray zone, even worse, at those countries or parts of countries, like again, 20% of Georgia is occupied by Russia. Transnistria in Moldova is fully militarized Russian zone. So in those areas, using AI is the best way to keep the control. While I believe, as the West, we are not doing enough. I am very happy, and again, congratulations to creators, designers of Force Design 2030, because this part of about intelligent robotics and autonomous systems is there, unlike other forces, unlike other nations, unlike other NATO allies. So again, legal awareness, cultural awareness, and ethical awareness about our enemies, adversaries, but also partner countries. So you, for example, Americans, would not be surprised why other countries, they don't see a need in codifying AI, not talking about AI among military. Because yes, we understand it's important, but because of all the legal culture, background, assets, it's not yet for us to do so. So ladies and gents, I'm waiting for your questions, but also comments. I'm here also to learn. So thank you very much, and Semper Fi.
Thank you, Matt, for all those comments. I'll start with, I think it's interesting you talked about, the Polish viewpoint of of a topic is going to be different than the German viewpoint, different from the Chinese viewpoint, the Russian. I mean, we in the United States can't even agree if it's soda, pop, cola, Coke. Like, you know, that's a national debate amongst us. So if we can't even agree on that, I think the first question I'm going to ask is, you mentioned our opponents are using AI against us, and I was wondering how they're going about using that.
First of all, this is what I say here in Poland, and my students laugh. I say TikTok and X and Instagram. And like, why? Like, it's anyhow to do with great power competition with big US ships and China. And it's like, no, totally not. Because when we have programs which are planned to get to the new generation, young generation, especially of Americans, telling those young people that being American is bad, that you should be ashamed, that you are guilty of all the wars all around the world, then those young people, they scroll down between other crazy fashion or music threads, and they see, yeah, okay, well, maybe I don't like it. And when it comes to, would you pick up, you know, the battle and go for a war for your country, for democracy, for NATO? They will not, because it's already in their brain that they should be ashamed. And other nations, other civilization, without a name, because there is never, like China mentioned, they will be seen as some kind of competitor, better one, while the Western world is rotten. The same with Russian propaganda. When we scroll some accounts on X, when I see what kind of feed Russians are giving to their compatriots, I'm like, well, okay, if I didn't have any other source, I would believe them. Why wouldn't I? What kind of other source of information would I have? Or in Belarus, the same. So AI is first of all changing the mindset of people. I'm not even saying, you know, getting to financial resources or changing, you know, lines of communication at the sea, because that's another level. I mean, building new generation, because as we always say, that we, the West, we are interactive, we wait something, what will happen, and then move on. But Chinese, our adversaries, they plan in decades to come. And unfortunately, they've been already, you know, starting to do so.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I'm quitting all those platforms or not starting them. So you talked about there not being a lot of codification in terms of the laws for AI. You mentioned the EU AI Act. Are there any countries that are making like federal laws that obviously pertain only within that country? Is there any country that's, you know, going above and beyond any of the others as it pertains to AI, or is everybody kind of playing the field the same way?
Yes, I wouldn't say that there is one country doing more than others, but those who are more technologically advanced, so Republic of Korea, Japan, Germany, they are focusing. And even last year, I've been in Switzerland on AI policy summit, which was also interesting to observe neutrality of that country, because me and my American friends, we were sitting next to representatives of China and Chinese, and this I'm delighted to share with you. Chinese representatives, they were saying that they are working at the level of the Chinese Communist Party, how to, quote, protect human rights through AI. I myself started to tick. I really heated myself, and I had to say something, because again, from my, you know, legal and moral duty, I said, just to remind everyone here in this room, every country, especially some countries, are interpreting human rights different. Some countries interpret human rights as torturing, killing, abducting, sterilizing, making forced abortion, and crossing the freedom of navigation and crossing territorial integrity. So we must not focus on national interpretation of democracy, because the evidences are there.
So we'll go to the first question in the chat. It's from Mon. It asks, does the EU AI legal framework have transnational enforcement across the globe?
Thank you, Mon, for this question. So European Union is very specific organization because only EU has the power to influence its citizen. So, for example, I am dual citizen of Poland and European Union, but only members of European Union are under the law of the EU. So you, most likely being American, has nothing to do with European Union law, unless you have dual citizenship. But European Union is very different from other organizations like Mercosur or your organization of North American countries, that it's not only among countries, but also down towards citizens. So now, because of this AI treaty, I am also responsible, have rights and duties under this regulation. I don't think that any other organization, regional organization, like for example, Arab League of or Organization of African Nations, they would follow, because they don't have that legal power over its citizens, only in the EU. That's why that was so easy to adopt, because here we have, I would say, I dare to say, the closest among neighbors legal cultures and legal norms. So the system is easier to change and adapt.
Great. We'll do another one from the chat. Albert asks, do you see the topic of robotic jus in bello as connected to the topic of building human operators' trust in autonomous weapon systems?
That's very technical. I'm not sure if I am an expert here, to Albert. Thank you for this question. But again, from the legal point of view, yes, everything is workable, doable under international law. When it comes to national, for example, American, it's easier because you only have to have agreement at the Congress level. But when it comes to regional or global, it's impossible. I don't even think that on the civilian level of artificial intelligence, there would be any consensus, because countries, they are so far away from one another, not mentioning big five in Security Council. So I will not go further in this technical military, what you probably, you are the most interested. But from the international point of view, yes, it is possible. And again, the more down we go, so at the national level is easier than at the regional or global level.
Yeah, I think it was the beginning of the year or the end of last year where there was, AI started to get really, really big, especially with AI art. And so there was a lot of discussion about, is it copyright? Is it stolen art? If I don't give permission to have my art as part of a data set to build an AI, has that been taken from me? Do I have legal recourse? And so I think that question is interesting. You brought up Isaac Asimov, a couple of times advertising for the show. I put the hashtag, the 3 laws of robotics. There's been authors that have sort of been thinking about this topic. Is there any kind of, we brought up Asimov's laws of robotics, Orson Scott Card in Ender's Game, not to spoil a book from 1985, or 1977, but, Ender is controlling, ships and craft that are actually out there, killing the aliens, but he thinks he's playing a game. So it brings up that ethical question of, was it right to put Ender in that situation? or Blade Runner. You know, we talked about the 5 kind of posits that the UK think tank put out there, that, you know, you should be able to, you know, a robot should know that it's a robot, and humans should be able to tell that it is a robot. But,
Yes.
you know, Philip K. Dick, the 1968 Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep was a big factor into, you know, Blade Runner. And in Blade Runner, you know, he doesn't know that he's an android. And so he's going about his life thinking that he's human. So is there a way, you know, we've got these folks kind of thinking about this topic. Has any of that fed into our viewpoints now?
Well, good that you mentioned that Blade Runner, because why don't we assume that actually our adversaries, China, is creating those robots, that they would think that they are actually humans. So they would think as they are, because if they are programmed that way, they would act that way. And again, if that will harm others, meaning us, so their adversaries, of course, it will happen that way. And again, what can be done? Well, law will not be executed at the international level, I'm afraid. So we must be prepared that ethics in AI will be breached. It's already been criminalized, used by our adversaries. So when we expect something, we must expect the least, the most criminal activities, the humanized activities, how our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, they program their robots, their drones against us. And again, their ethics is different than ours. We are aware of that. So why would they, if they are now killing civilians or torturing political opponents, why wouldn't they use another great weapon being AI, programming? So I would expect that, yes, that will happen. And I'm sure that the test phases, they're already there.
All right, we'll go with one more from the chat, and then we'll move into closing comments as we come up on our hour here. But so Albert, and this kind of goes into my bringing up the art in artificial intelligence, and it you know, whether it's stolen or whether it's original. But Albert asks, when it comes to the question of who is held responsible for when AI or autonomy fails, what is the current state of legal discourse around issues like inherent or unconscious bias present in algorithms already present, say in security system software being sold to civilian building managers?
Of course, the responsibility is for the owner or person using. But again, there must be proved who was actually using that system or that robot at that particular time, which had the consequence of breaching the law or making some financial losses or other negative consequences. And as for now, yes, we have some small cases, like, for example, with some artists who are creating their art, their paintings with AI, and some others stealing and using their jobs. So the first cases, court cases, are there, but still we are building precedents. Also, another state is in your country, United States, and then in our common law system at the continental level. Sorry, not Britain, but the continent. So we have civil law that we need some passes, some bills of parliament, some acts. We do not follow the precedents made by a judge, unlike in the US. So again, we have two paths of judicial proceedings to start this practice. We don't have that many cases of AI being misused, being stolen, being again used for other reasons than expected, not even mentioning harmful actions like killing, or maybe with cars driven by AI, what happened? For example, we have a path roads with the stripping lines over there, and what if one of the line is wrong? Then the car will follow the line and might hit another car driving from the other side. Whose fault would that be? A driver, owner of a car, or maybe that was just a leasing car, or maybe people who are painting those stripes on the road. So a lot of legal question, who at the end is responsible for that? We don't have such cases yet, but again, we are creating this norm. We're living in a very interesting times that another branch of law is being made by us, society.
Awesome. And with that, we'll lead into if you have any closing comments for today.
Yes, that will not be about today's speech because I think I have said almost everything, but I am honored to say that my book under my edition for the Marine Corps University for our great Krulak Center will be soon published. There are 10 non-resident fellows like I am. We have other friends and colleagues who agreed to write their chapters about the future warfare and how Marine Corps will be used in those future conflicts. I am very proud of this book because I really hope that that will empower you Marines, which I strongly, strongly admire, to show that you have been needed and that need will last in future warfare, including during using AI in the future war fighting.
And well, I really appreciate you tuning in. I know it's later there in the afternoon there in Poland. So thanks for your time and your insight today. It was super interesting, especially for me. Thanks to all those folks who joined us in the chat. Thanks to those who are going to join us in the future on Spotify and YouTube. That's all we have for this episode. So go ahead and carry out the plan of the day.
Thank you very much, guys. Stay healthy. Thank you. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Thanks for joining us. As always, we depend on support and feedback from the Team Krulak community to constantly improve our offerings and reach a wider audience. So if you have feedback on this episode, please take a moment to fill out the survey linked in the show notes to help us do better. Also, if you have enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel on YouTube or leave us a review on the podcast app of your choice. It truly does help us reach a wider audience. Thank you as always for your support, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Education is what's important. Training, preparation for the expected. Education, preparation for the unexpected.